With your knowledge and you combating the effeminization of the black men, what is a direct way that we could combat this in our own communities and families?
Yes, that's an excellent question. One of the reasons that we created the Straight Black Pride movement is because this is international. Everywhere you go on this planet, black people are suffering because their mothers, sons, nieces, nephews are getting drawn into this homosexual agenda. And the Europeans are paying billions of dollars to force our people into it. They put it into our schools. They running it through the prison industrial system. They're making it impossible to escape. So what we realized is when you want to fight something of that magnitude, it's not sufficient to just try to stop it and put out every fire, because the fire is everywhere.
Right.
We had to create a movement
To counteract.
to counter it. And so we said, look, the Straight Black Pride movement, what that does, instead of saying I'm anti this, we can say this is what we are for,
Right.
for black men, women, and children. What that does, that is an affirmative position that grandmothers and grandfathers can agree with, sensible brothers and sisters, middle age, young people in their 20s, and young people who are still sane, we can agree with. Now we have a platform that we can be strong on. And we can say, wait a minute, this is what we believe in. So now they can't classify us as being terrorists. It's more difficult to classify us as being anti-something. And now we say this is what we stand for. Now we can get every element of our community, brothers that still like black women, and black women that still like brothers, to say, okay, now let's look at the problem. And once we see the problem, then we can say, okay, it is not going to be sufficient to try to make adjustments. What we're going to have to do is say, we cannot send our children to, Brother Che, would you? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. It's not going to be, we're going to have our own schools. We have to draw our children out of these schools and have our own environments, not only schools. The reason that the Straight Black Pride movement was so important, the most important thing, even more than the school, we have to have social environments that exclude the behavior that we're not accepting. So now when you have a movement that says, I'm straight, black, proud, and these are the principles that I believe in and that we deal with, then that means that now I can say no pedophiles in this arena. We're not playing games. If you're involved in homosexuality, I might not be attacking you, but this is my space. You can't come in. And we can do that. And then what happens is now all the silent majority of our people who are against this homosexuality, but who become homophobic and afraid to speak out against homosexuality, now they don't have to be cowards anymore because they have something that's palatable that they can be part of. That's how we fight it.
Right.
That's a direct way to fight it, to have a movement that people can come in. If you're against this, come be part of this movement. We draw our space and say they're not allowed.
That's a good thing you said that about how they have taken over every arena to pollute it with the homosexual agenda. What is your take on the civil rights movement and what it really had to do with this gay agenda that they have now come out? Because you can watch cartoons and there are same-sex marriages in the cartoons, and we know that now since they have elected to have same-sex marriages over the board, that they're going to use civil rights in order to be pedophiles. They're saying it's their right to do this. So talk about the connection where we thought that it was really about us, but we understand that it was really about them pushing the gay agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
30 years later.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. The individual that would be most worth your time and interest studying is named Bayard Rustin, Bayard Rustin. It is very likely he is the worst Mobutu or race traitor of the 20th century. He was the individual that controlled the March on Washington, that was put in control by the Europeans of the March on Washington. People think it was Dr. Martin Luther King. No, the executive director of the March on Washington was a blatant, open homosexual who was regularly sleeping with white males, black males, and any other males he could sleep with, and very young males. So going directly towards pedophilia. Long story short, he was instrumental in helping to create a movement that was a counter movement to two other movements. See, our people don't realize what really happens, just like it happened here in Ferguson. The original movement of Ferguson was a young youth black movement. The young people had the strength and the character to fight and the courage, but they didn't have the sophistication to understand what was going to happen. The homosexuals came in, and you all were there when we did this last time, where they paid people not to come to our event, and I told everybody, the homosexuals are going to take over your movement. Now I'm talking to the young brothers, and they say they took over the movement. So when the real, authentic black movement comes up, they destroy it. There were two movements. The black freedom movement with people like Rosa Parks, who was a warrior. People don't know her real story. Her grandfather was Garveyite. She used to sit up every night and wouldn't go to sleep because she said when the first Klansman come through that door, I can't miss my grandfather blowing his brains out. That's Rosa Parks. That's how she grew up being a Garveyite. So that was a freedom movement where they brothers and sisters may not have known exactly what to do to get free, but they packed heat and they were going to protect our people at all costs. Right. Brother Nixon and other brothers and sisters down there that we don't hear their names. That was a freedom movement. Then there was another movement called a Black Power movement, or they grew into that with Robert F. Williams and Sister Mabel Williams. They grew into the Panthers. These were strong, organic black movements that started with black people, with not working with anybody else, just working with in our own interests. It was corrupted by a homosexual movement that later becomes called the Civil Rights Movement. From as early as A. Philip Randolph, who we call him Gay Philip Randolph because he was a homosexual. His boyfriend was Bayard Rustin. These individuals were financed by whites, mostly white so-called Jews. We call them small hats.
And also the
NAACP was all controlled by small hats started in order to undermine Garvey's movement. So the idea is that every time an authentic black movement comes up, the whites get Uncle Toms and mostly homosexual Uncle Toms. Infiltrate, pretend like they're pro-black, get our people to give all the resources and support behind, and then they turn it to a different agenda. And they're just doing it more blatantly these days with Black Lives Matter, which is really Gay Lives Matter, which is a homosexual movement sponsored and started by small hats. The face of it is white lesbians, and they're trying to undermine our culture and our families, and we have to fight it.
Great. With you also speaking about the cowards and those who are afraid to speak up, and basically they think speaking up is being rude when you talk about being heterosexual versus homosexual. Now, we know that there is nothing to be rude about when you're simply talking about what's natural and what comes from nature. There has to be a feminine and a masculine energy. So those of us who want to speak out about certain things, not just homosexuality, but a range of issues that we have.
Interracial dating.
How do we protect our people and keep them from becoming political prisoners and being stuck behind bars for decades? With all of the proof that we have now, knowing the infiltration of these movements, as you just talked about, even with the Black Panther Party, and they still have our people locked behind bars, knowing that it was all a conspiracy to begin with. How do we begin to protect ourselves from this?
Yes, that's a beautiful question.
And a little bit extra on that, considering all of the talk about how they're purposely locking away black men to kind of deplete us out here on the street, to take away from our army. I mean, what is should we be planning for some type of excavation of our people from behind those bars? Because considering the condition that black people are currently in, it's quite obvious that we're gonna need it. We need every man that we got. And
not to mention
and not only that, how realistic is that? You know what I mean?
Let me get to the answer, because this is what's happening. When you're in war, it's very important to know where the center of the war is. Because if you miss on the center, you can do a lot of things on the side, but the further they get into your forces, the further you get to a point of not being able to do much at all to defend yourself. What happens is, the point of attack is the homosexuality. Why? Let me say this. To the point that both of you are making. We have these political prisoners, for instance, Brother Odinga, who's been out, spent decades in prison. Now he's out here. All that wisdom, we need access to that now. Brother Mutulu Shakur, it looks like he's going to be coming out. These are people that can give us all this wisdom and help us figure out what we're going to do. But here's the problem. If we haven't decided that there are no homosexuals in our circle, and that's not the movement that we're part of, then it's a real conflict, because the reality, you're not going to get heterosexual black men or black women to be in a room with a bunch of homosexuals talking about black power. So then it goes to the point you're talking about. Well, what do we do about the political prisoners or the brothers that's in there? How do we get them out? Well, you can't, because you don't have organized men. You got a bunch of homosexuals, and all they want to do is sleep with men. And they want access to the boys. So are 20 men supposed to put their lives on the line and go to that place? Well, who they going to leave in their community? Who's going to be left behind? A bunch of pedophiles, a bunch of homosexuals, a bunch of down low guys, a bunch of freaks, a bunch of queers, a bunch of race traders. So we don't even have potential for an army until we find a point of attack, which says this. We have to stop being homophobic. And what homophobic means is afraid to speak out against homosexuality. We afraid we're going to lose our jobs. We afraid we're going to get attacked, and all these things might happen. We afraid that they're going to call us terrorists and lock us up, which they're in the process of. But the problem is this: we don't realize they can do that because we're not speaking out. If Every brave black man and woman and child that sees this homosexual agenda and the sickness of it and the danger of it says, I'm straight black pride. And we're against homosexuality because it's a better relationship for a black man to be with a black woman. If we all said that, they can't lock us all up. And once we get serious with it, then we start attracting people who are not afraid. And the lions start giving courage to the people who agree but are afraid. Then the homophobia disease leaves and we start being black people with some character and courage again. Now, once we push them back with the energy it takes to do that, now you know what your army looks like. And it ain't gonna just be big brothers. It's gonna be small sisters. It's gonna be children. It's gonna be anybody that's not afraid. See, that's one thing we look for. We look for the big, bulky dude. That don't mean he got heart though.
Right.
And it doesn't mean even if he has heart, don't mean he got heart for this war.
Right.
Many of the Panthers had big brothers and sisters. Many of them weren't. But they had the courage to say, I'm gonna feed our children. We don't care what the government says. We're gonna stand up against the police and defend our community. They weren't cowards. But when they come out now, the problem is, who do they really reach out to? We have not taken a position to become relevant as a young generation to say, these are our principles. Once they see that there's some young people with principles, we're not supposed to be asking these elders to come out and jump in because they should be able to retire and just give us their wisdom. But we should be able to say, look, this is what we have, this is what we're gonna do. Give us some advice, what you went through. Tell us what to look out for. Tell us how to avoid these things. And then we can connect that generation. They got all that wisdom and knowledge. And they lost thousands of people in this battle. They lost brothers got murdered, sisters raped and tortured and beaten, families destroyed, drugs. They can tell us all they're going to do. They're going to send white female. They can tell us everything they're going to do. They can even be there sometime we doing stuff to say, young man, be careful of this. Watch that. But they don't have to get involved. They done their time. They should be there to be able to help us. We're not asking them to tell us what to do because this is our battlefield. But we do need their guidance. But we can't get that guidance until we put our foot down and say, this is our boundary.
A blueprint, basically. We need a blueprint.
Not just a blueprint. We got to say, here are rules that we have and positions that we take that are firm. Our people like say, well, I don't agree with homosexuality, but there is no but. Not only do we not agree with it, we got to take a position. It can't be accepted in my circle. So you're going to tell homosexuals? Yes, I'm going to tell them not to come. But they don't have to come. But if they do, they're going to get shown the exit. Why? Because we have a right. We're not even going to debate the right to have a community where we say the only acceptable relationship is a consenting black man and consenting black woman, and we're not even going to discuss anything else because that's the only way to lose a black child.
A natural relationship.
That's right.
That's all it is.
We don't want
natural.
So rehabilitation for homosexuals, what do you think about that?
That was going to be my next question.
Excellent question. I would say this. There are brothers and sisters out there who say that they can help homosexuals rehabilitate. I would say anybody that wants to get out of that, any black person who's done anything, if they want to get out and the people to help them, I'm 100% in favor of that. What I would say is this, it's just like crack. If a person does crack, I don't hate that black person, but I don't want that black person in my community doing crack. But if that person says, I want help, we want to be able to have somebody go help them. But guess what? If that person don't want help, you can't force a person that doesn't want to let crack go to do it. So my thing is for the brothers and sisters who may have been sexually abused, they messed up in the head, they going wrong, the ones that realize that it's wrong and they want out and they seeking help, we support them seeking help. We're not necessarily going to say come in the straight black pride movement and sit next to my son or daughter and do that, but we'll say, look, you need help. Here's some people that can help you. We'll offer those services outside of the inner core to help a person get right. Until when they right, then that's a different story. But in terms of those that don't want to make the adjustment, we're not going to pretend that we can make them act right. And we're not going to allow them in our circle so they can poison more of our sons and daughters. It's like that's a decision that they have to make. We're 100% in favor of it when it works, but we're not going to lie to ourselves and think that everybody that says they want to be helped is telling the truth. We got to see your actions and your behavior and that change your heart. And when that sister's gotten out of that behavior, denounces that and is living new, we 100% in favor of her. We're not going to hold that against her, you know. We're not going to hold anything our people done in the past. We got brothers that sold drugs. I've done horrible stuff. We've all done stuff in the system. Yeah, and we've done it, and it's bad. And I know, but at the end of the day,
I just wanted to ask because I know me personally from watching you, and I'm sure a lot of other people that watch you take your perspective on that as you did it once, you're out of here. Like one time. But that's
I'll say it like this though. I'll say it like this. If the person is actively engaged in any way, shape, or form and walking that direction, like, nah, it's not, we're not having, so this is the thing. We can't come out with a firm position that says, if you want to change, it's okay. No, it don't work that way. Firm position say we don't accept it. Now after that, once we strong and you say, I want out, all right, that's cool. But just know that we firm in this. There ain't no laughing matter and it's not a game. And it's a very strong. I'm not going to say the word militant.
Zero tolerance.
It's a zero tolerance for homosexuality, pedophilia, because we know homosexuality comes from pedophilia. We're not playing with these people that are messing up our children, and we got to step this up.
Now, I know that a lot of us have heard about some of the food that comes into our neighborhoods, which some have suggested also plays a part in the homosexuality and the turning of the sexual organs for the boys and things like that. What is your knowledge and your perspective on the different things like the soy and those types of things when it comes to homosexuality?
We just talked to a brother today who said in prison where he is that, I forgot who told us this. Somebody just told us, this was last night we were talking, that in the prison that he's in, that all of the food is soy. No, matter of fact, no, it's not. No, I just talked to a brother in the barbershop. He's a CO, that's who it was. Okay. He's a CO. He said, I asked him the question, in Washington, D.C., I said, what percentage of the brothers you think are down low or into the homosexuality in D.C. jail? He said 85%. I'm going to say it again. He said 85%. Then he said, and brother, he said, all they feed, he said, everything that they eat is made of soy. I was like, what? So my point being, there's a brother named Tyrone Hayes. He's a scientist. He actually did tests with some of the chemicals. And when he tested the chemicals, they have one called atrazine. It's right by Syngenta. Literally, when he put this chemical on frogs, it made the males into females. They start growing ovaries and laying eggs. What does that mean? That means that the Europeans are intentionally putting things in the food, particularly if you're a grown man with a lot of testosterone, it won't have the same impact, but it still impacts you. But specifically targeted towards our young people, to disgender them, to not let a young man grow properly with his testosterone, and also the same thing with the daughters with the estrogen. They're disgendering our children and using chemical and biological warfare to kill our people, and that's real.
In the milk.
It's in everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
but even more prevalent in the formula, because we're not breastfeeding our own children. In the formula, they say that the estrogen that's in the Similac that we're giving is like 100 times more than it should be.
The food for a baby was given from the Creator. The cow gives it to its babies.
Right.
Every animal that has the milk to feed its children does that. The same is supposed to be for the black woman. She's supposed to be feeding her children that way. That's what we've done for millions of years, and it worked just fine. We got to get back to that. God gave us the natural food for the child. We don't have to find it.
That's right. That's right. Anything else specific? Okay.
All right. Let me can I say one straight black pride? All right. All right. All right, St. Louis, we appreciate you. We love you. This is the Warriors Conference, straight black pride.
Black power!